The first time Karen screamed at me, I was standing knee-deep in red Texas mud, holding a surveyor's stake, and wondering if I'd made the worst financial decision of my life. "You can't do that," she yelled, storming toward me in tennis shoes that had never seen dope before. Her blonde bob bounced with every furious step, sunglasses perched like a crown of authority. "That road is for the neighborhood." I looked behind me. The road in question was a cracked strip of asphalt barely wide enough for 2 trucks to pass without losing mirrors. It ran straight through my newly purchased ranch, slicing my posture in half like someone had taken a knife to a birthday cake and walked away halfway through. I calmly checked the folded survey map in my hand again. Property lines were clear, painfully clear. The road was mine. Karen didn't care. "You people always think money lets you do whatever you want," she snapped, pointing a manicured finger inches from my face. "This is an HOA community. We have rules. You can't just buy land and disrupt everyone's lives." I smiled, not because I was confident, because I was terrified. Terrified she might be right. Terrified I'd missed something in the paperwork. Terrified of the quiet ranch life I dreamed was about to turn into a legal nightmare with matching yard signs and cease-and-desist letters. But then she said the magic words, "I'm calling the HOA president." That's when I realized something important. There was no HOA on my land, and that single strip of asphalt, it was the only road they had. I didn't buy the ranch to start a war. I bought it to disappear. After 20 years of city noise, neighbors arguing over fence heights, and an HOA that once fined me for having a blue doormat instead of an approved earth tone, I was done. I wanted space. Quiet. Cows that minded their own business. Maybe a horse or two. Definitely no one telling me what shade of beige my mailbox should be. That's why I was careful, painfully careful, when I bought the ranch. 6 to 2 acres just outside what everyone assumed was an HOA-controlled development. Keyword, assumed. The realtor mentioned it casually. There's an HOA nearby, but this property isn't part of it. I made her repeat it. Then I made the title company confirm it. Then I paid extra for a full boundary survey because paranoia, it turns out, is survival skill. Everything checked out. What no one mentioned, what no one thought mattered, was the road. The neighborhood beyond my ranch had been built 15 years earlier. A neat little grid of identical homes, identical lawns, identical SUVs parked at identical angles. They had an HOA with bylaws thicker than my closing documents. What they didn't have was direct access to the county road. Instead, years ago, the original ranch owner, long before me, had allowed a temporary access road across his land while the developer figured things out. They never did. The road stayed. Ownership never changed. And somehow everyone just forgot until I showed up with a surveyor. Karen was the first to confront me, but she wasn't the last. Over the next 2 days, people slowed their cars to glare. Some rolled down windows to shout advice I didn't ask for. One guy told me I was ruining the community vibe while driving a lifted truck that rattled my fence. On day 3, a man in a polo shirt and khakis arrived, clipboard in hand, smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Hi, I'm Brad," he said, "HOA Vice President." I nodded. "Nice to meet you." He gestured vaguely at the survey flags. "We're going to need you to remove those." "I'm not." Brad blinked. "Excuse me." "This is my land," I said. "I'm fencing it." His smile tightened. "That road is essential infrastructure. It's private property. You can't just shut it down." I unfolded the survey again, slower this time, letting the silence stretch. "I can, and unless you have an easement recorded with the county, you're trespassing." That's when Brad's voice dropped the polite act. "You're going to regret this." That night, I sat on the porch of the old ranch house, listening to cicadas scream into the dark. I replayed every interaction, every raised voice, every threat. Part of me wondered if I should compromise, maybe allow limited access, set hours, collect a fee. Then I remembered the HOA fines, the letters, the threats, the feeling of being watched in my own home. I didn't move out here to trade one controlling neighbor for 100. The next morning, I called my attorney. He laughed, actually laughed. "Do they have an easement?" he asked. "No." Then they don't have a road. By Friday, construction trucks arrived. By Saturday, Karen was back, this time with friends. And by Sunday evening, the only road into their neighborhood ended at a freshly installed steel gate, bolted into concrete that was still drying. I stood there as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across my land. Behind the gate, cars lined up, confused, angry, helpless. Karen screamed again. But this time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. Monday morning started with a lawyer's letter taped to my gate. Not mailed, not emailed, taped, with neon orange duct tape, like I was some kind of crime scene. I peeled it off slowly, half expecting dramatic music to play in the background. The letterhead was fancy, embossed logo, heavy paper. Words like immediate action required screaming from the top in bold caps. I didn't even need to read the name to know it came from the HOA. Still, I did. They were demanding that I remove the gate within 48 hours, citing long-standing community use, implied access rights, and my personal favorite, disruption of neighborhood harmony. I laughed so hard my dog started barking at me. Implied access rights. That was HOA speak, for we got used to it and now we're mad. I folded the letter and slipped it into my back pocket. Then I turned around and nearly ran straight into Karen. She had appeared out of nowhere, standing on the other side of the gate like an angry ghost. Her sunglasses were gone this time. Her eyes were wild. "You think this is funny?" she shouted through the bars. "People can't get to work. Kids can't get to school." I raised an eyebrow. "There's a county road half a mile east." "That road is too far." "That sounds like a planning issue," I said calmly. Her face went red. "You're abusing your power." I glanced around at the 60 acres of dirt, cows, and a house that still needed a new roof. "What power?" She jabbed a finger at the gate. "This." I leaned closer. "This is a fence. On my land." Karen stormed off, shouting something about lawsuits and news stations and how I'd never show my face in town again. I waved. She didn't wave back. By noon, the HOA Facebook group had discovered me. I didn't join it. I didn't need to. A neighbor from town sent me screenshots. Who does this guy think he is? He bought the land just to control US. My grandmother has to walk an extra 10 minutes now. One post had my picture, taken from behind my gate, with a caption, "This is a man holding our community hostage." That one got over 100 angry reactions. I forwarded everything to my attorney. His response was a single sentence: "Let them document their own trespassing." By Tuesday, things escalated. Someone tried to move the gate. They failed. Steel posts sunk 3 feet into concrete tend to win arguments with minivans. The next attempt was more creative. I woke up to find the lock jammed with glue. Industrial strength, judging by the smell. I replaced it by lunchtime and installed a camera pointed directly at the gate. That night, the footage caught 3 silhouettes whispering, arguing, and eventually giving up when they noticed a blinking red light. On Wednesday, the HOA went official. I received a certified letter, this time properly mailed, stating they were filing for an emergency injunction. They claimed the road was essential for emergency services. That one gave me pause. I called the county. Turns out, the fire department had never used that road. Their official access route was along the county road Karen hated. Ambulances, too. Police as well. The HOA had been lying to themselves for years. I sent the county's written confirmation straight to my lawyer. On Thursday, the news van showed up. I was fixing a fence when a woman in heels walked across my pasture like she owned it, cameraman in tow. "Sir," she called out, "we'd like to hear your side of the story." I wiped sweat off my neck. "You're trespassing." She froze. "We're with Channel 7. "I don't care if you're with NASA," I said. "You're still trespassing." That clip never aired. What did air was an interview with Karen, standing dramatically in front of the gate, describing how she felt trapped, targeted, and personally attacked. She didn't mention the HOA fines. She didn't mention the missing easement. She didn't mention that I'd offered to discuss a legal, paid access agreement. Once. They'd laughed at me then. By Friday, the HOA president himself showed up. Older guy, gray hair, Expensive watch. Calm voice. We can resolve this amicably, he said, hands clasped. You reopen the road, and we forget this ever happened. And if I don't, he smiled thinly, we'll bleed you dry in court. I smiled back. I already paid for mine. He didn't like that answer. Court came faster than I expected. The emergency injunction hearing was set for the following Tuesday. The HOA packed the courtroom. Karen sat front row, arms crossed, smirk ready. Their lawyer spoke first. He painted me as a reckless landowner, indifferent to community needs, abusing technicalities. Then my lawyer stood up. He handed the judge three things: the deed, the survey, and a complete absence of any recorded easement. The judge flipped through them quietly. Counsel, he said to the HOA attorney, on what legal basis are you claiming access? The room went very, very still. We believe, the attorney said carefully, that historical use establishes a right. The judge looked over his glasses. Belief is not law. Karen's smirk cracked. The judge denied the injunction. Just like that, outside the courthouse, Karen screamed at me again. This time, people stared. You're not done, she yelled. We'll make your life hell. I leaned in close, voice low. You already tried. That night, I added a second gate. Bigger, heavier, and impossible to ignore. The HOA had made their move. Now it was my turn. The first HOA resignation happened on a Wednesday. I only knew about it because someone slid an envelope under my gate like a bad spy movie. No return address. No name. Just a folded note inside, written in shaky pen. I quit the board today. I'm sorry for how they treated you. We were never told the truth about the road. I stood there longer than I meant to, rereading that line. Never told the truth. That explained a lot. Up until then, the HOA had moved like a single angry organism, loud, coordinated, convinced it was right. But organisms only stay united when everyone believes the same lie. Once doubt creeps in, things get messy. And messy is exactly what it got. The Facebook post changed tone first. Where there had been rage, there was confusion. Wait, there was never an easement. Why did the developer do this? Are our Jews paying for this lawsuit? That last one lit a fire. Turns out, the HOA had voted, quietly, internally, to fund the legal fight using community Jews. No special meeting. No transparent breakdown. Just a line item buried under legal contingencies. People noticed. By Friday, screenshots of bank statements were circulating. Karen tried to shut it down, calling it misinformation. That didn't help. Saturday morning, a man in his 40s showed up at my gate. No clipboard. No attitude. Hey, he said, hands in his pockets. Name's Mike. I live on Cedar Loop. I nodded but didn't open the gate. I just wanted to say, he continued, most of us didn't know about the road, about the lack of paperwork. Yet here we are, I said. He sighed. Yeah. Listen, would you consider reopening it, even temporarily? I studied his face. He looked tired, not angry, just worn down. I offered an agreement, I said, before the threats. He nodded. They told us you were asking for something crazy. I smiled. $5,000 a year, liability waiver, limited hours. His eyes widened. That's it. That was it. Mike shook his head slowly. They said you wanted control, that you were planning to jack it up later. And now half the neighborhood is wondering why we're paying lawyers instead of just paying you. I didn't say anything. He hesitated. There's a meeting Monday. It's going to be ugly. I'm sure. He left with a quiet wave. Monday came like a thunderclap. I didn't attend the meeting, obviously, but I didn't need to. By Tuesday morning, my phone was blowing up with texts from unknown numbers. They lied to US. Karen lost it. Someone brought up the developer contract. That last message made me pause. I called my attorney. Did we ever get the original development docs? I asked. There was a pause. Why? Just a feeling. 2 hours later, he called me back, voice different. Where did you say the neighborhood record was stored? In the old sales office, I said. The one that got converted into a daycare. Another pause. Interesting, he said. Very interesting. By Wednesday, the HOA was imploding. 2 more board members resigned. The president stopped answering emails. Karen, according to witnesses, had screamed so loudly at the meeting that someone called security. But the Real bomb dropped Thursday afternoon. My attorney showed up at the ranch in person. He laid a folder on my kitchen table and opened it like a magician, revealing the final trick. Inside was a photocopy of a contract, yellowed, old, and very specific. Original developer agreement, he said, signed before the first home was built. I scanned the page. There it was. A clause stating that the access road across the ranch was temporary, not to exceed 5 years, and that the HOA was responsible for securing a permanent easement alternate access before the expiration date. The date had passed. 14 years ago. I leaned back in my chair. They never did it, I said. They never did it, he confirmed. And here's the kicker. He flipped to the last page. A penalty clause. If the HOA failed to secure access and continued using the road without permission, they were liable for back-use compensation, calculated annually. I did the math in my head. My attorney smiled. I already did it. Conservative estimate? North of $200,000. I laughed. I couldn't help it. All this time, I said, they weren't just wrong. They were trespassing. Consistently, for over a decade. That evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was the HOA president. His voice was strained. We need to talk. I'm listening. We found documents, he said carefully. Funny, I replied. So did I. Silence. What do you want? He asked. I looked out the window at my land, the fence line stretching clean and clear. I want what I asked for in the beginning, I said. A legal agreement, fair compensation, and an apology. Public. He exhaled sharply. Karen will never go for that. Then she shouldn't have made it personal. The next day, Karen's name was removed from the HOA board website. By Sunday, a white envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not from Karen, from the HOA. We acknowledge that we acted without proper authority and without full disclosure to our members. I folded it neatly. The community was cracking, and they finally realized something important. The road wasn't their problem. Their leadership was. Karen didn't go quietly. People like her never do. The day her name vanished from the HOA website, she showed up at my gate with a printed copy of it, waving the pages like evidence in a courtroom drama. They stabbed me in the back, she screamed through the bars. After everything I did for them. I didn't answer. I was leaning against my truck, arms crossed, letting her burn herself out. This is your fault, she continued. You turned them against me. I finally spoke. You did that yourself. Her face twisted. I was protecting the community. You were lying to it. That's when she did something unexpected. She smiled. Not a happy smile. A tight, dangerous one. Oh, this isn't over, she said softly. You think you won? You don't know who you're dealing with. She walked away before I could reply. I should have known that meant trouble. The next move didn't come from the HOA. It came from the county. 2 days later, a county inspector truck rolled up my driveway. Clipboard, hard hat, official seal on the door. Environmental compliance, the man said. We received a complaint. Of course you did. He spent 3 hours walking my land, checking fencing, drainage, water runoff, even my livestock permits. I followed him the whole time, documents in hand. Everything was clean. At the end, he sighed. You're good. Whoever called this and doesn't know what they're talking about. I smiled. Get used to that. The following week brought a noise complaint, then an animal welfare check, then a zoning inquiry about my barn, even though it had been there since the 1980s. Karen was carpet bombing me with bureaucracy. It didn't work. Each inspector left with the same look, mild embarrassment and a sense they'd been used. But Karen wasn't done. She escalated. On Friday night, just after sunset, my camera alert went off. Movement at the gate. I pulled the footage up on my phone and felt my jaw tighten. Karen, with bolt cutters. She yanked at the lock once, twice, failed. Then she noticed the camera. She flipped it off. That clip would later be played in a courtroom. At the time, I just saved it. Saturday morning, my attorney called before I finished coffee. "Did you authorize any changes to the gate?" he asked. "No." "Good," he said, "because someone filed an emergency complaint claiming you lock residents inside their homes." I laughed. "They drove out the East Road yesterday." "I know," he said, "but this is about optics, and Karen's fingerprints are all over it." By noon, Karen had gone public again. This time, she organized a community protest. They gathered outside my fence, signs, megaphone, the works. "Open the road, stop the land tyrant, we deserve access." Someone brought a drone. That one didn't last long. It crossed my property line and met my no-drone policy courtesy of local law enforcement, who arrived after I made a call. Karen screamed at the deputy. That was a mistake. The deputy listened patiently, then asked one simple question. "Do you have permission to be here?" She sputtered. "This is a public matter." "This is private land," he said. "You're being warned." She didn't listen. She never does. When she refused to leave, she earned herself a citation for trespassing and disorderly conduct. The crowd dispersed fast after that. Karen left last, glaring at me like I'd personally destroyed her life. In a way, I had, but only because she'd built it on lies. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 3 days later, I got served. Not by the HOA, by Karen. She was suing me personally for emotional distress, loss of community standing, and, my favorite, intentional infliction of inconvenience. My attorney laughed for a full 30 seconds. "This is desperation," he said, "and it's about to cost her." We filed a counterclaim. Trespassing, harassment, attempted property damage, and abuse of county reporting systems. The video footage helped. A lot. The hearing was set fast. Karen represented herself. That told me everything I needed to know. The courtroom was packed. HOA members sat together, quiet, uncomfortable. Karen sat alone. When it was her turn to speak, she launched into a dramatic monologue about community spirit, neighborly duty, and how I was weaponizing land ownership. The judge listened, patiently. Then he asked, "Ms. Reynolds, did you ever verify that you had a legal right to use a road?" She hesitated. "Everyone used it." "That's not what I asked." Silence. "Did you file false reports to county agencies?" "No," she snapped. My attorney stood. "Your Honor, may I present Exhibit C?" The video of Karen with bolt cutters played on the screen. The judge leaned back. Karen's face drained of color. The ruling was swift. Her case was dismissed. My counterclaim was not. The judge issued a restraining order, prohibiting her from entering or approaching my property. He also fined her for abuse of process. When the gavel fell, Karen didn't scream. She just sat there, staring ahead, hollow. Outside, the HOA president approached me. "We'd like to finalize the agreement," he said quietly. I nodded. "With new leadership." He nodded back. Karen walked past us without a word. No sunglasses. No confidence. No crowd. Just a woman who pushed too far. That night, I locked the gate, walked my fence line, and listened to the quiet. The road was still closed. But not for long. Because now, finally, we were talking on my terms. Negotiations began the morning after Karen lost in court. Not loudly, not arrogantly, and for the first time, honestly, the HOA president didn't come alone this time. He brought 2 newly elected board members and a lawyer who spoke more with his pen than his mouth. They stood outside my gate, waiting. No shouting, no demands. I opened the gate halfway, not inviting them in, just enough to talk. "We want to resolve this," the president said, "properly." "Good," I replied, "because that's the only way it happens." We met at a folding table I set up under an oak tree. No conference room, No power dynamics. Just shade, dust, and paperwork. Their lawyer slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer. It was better than my original one. They proposed an annual access fee, full liability coverage, maintenance costs, and a written apology to be distributed to every homeowner. They also agreed to remove all negative public statements and cover my legal fees. I didn't accept immediately. Add one thing, I said. The lawyer looked up. Name it. Restricted hours, I said. No late-night traffic. No construction convoys at dawn. This is a ranch, not a freeway. The board members nodded. Done. The president said. I leaned back. And one more. They tense. Any violation of this agreement, I continued, terminates access immediately. No warnings. No grace period. Silence. Then the president exhaled. Agreed. We shook hands. Just like that, the war was over. The announcement went out that evening. Not a Facebook post. Not a rumor. A formal letter. It explained everything. The missing easement, the developer's failure, the legal ruling, and the new agreement. It named no villains, but it didn't hide the truth either. The neighborhood reacted in waves. First, shock. Then, anger. Then, relief. And finally, accountability. At the next HOA meeting, attendance tripled. Homeowners demanded audits, transparency, limits on board power. Karen's name came up often, but mostly as a warning, not a defense. By the end of the month, the HOA bylaws were amended. Board terms were shortened. Major legal actions now require community votes. Financial records became public, all because of a road they never owned. The gate reopened the following Monday, but it wasn't the same gate. It had signage now, clear rules, cameras, and a keypad system tied to HOA-issued codes. I stood there the first morning, watching cars pass through. No honking, no glaze, just quiet, cautious compliance. Mike from Cedar Loop slowed his truck and waved. Thanks, he mouthed. I nodded back. Karen moved out 2 weeks later. No announcement, no goodbye. A moving truck showed up early one morning, loaded fast, and left before noon. The house went up for sale shortly after. The listing mentioned quiet neighborhood and easy access. I laughed when I saw that. Life settled. The cows didn't care. The fence held. The road stayed where it belonged, under my terms. I invested the access fees into improvements, better fencing, a new barn roof, upgraded water lines. I even donated a portion to the local volunteer fire department, just to be sure no one ever questioned emergency access again. Irony, handled properly, is a powerful thing. One afternoon, months later, a letter arrived, handwritten, from Karen. I debated not opening it. Curiosity won. I still think you were wrong. It began. But I shouldn't have taken it as far as I did. I lost more than I expected. That was it. No apology, no ownership, just acknowledgement. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer with the rest of the paperwork. Some people never learn fully, but they learn enough. The town changed how it looked at HOAs after that. Developers started double-checking easements. Buyers asked better questions. People realized that we've always done it this way isn't a legal strategy. And me? I got what I wanted from the start. Space, quiet, control over my own land, and a reminder that standing your ground doesn't mean being cruel. It means being clear. On a warm evening, I sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the hills. The road was visible in the distance, cars passing like a quiet river. It no longer divided my land. It respected it. A year passed faster than I expected. The ranch changed with the seasons. Green in spring, gold in summer, burnt orange by fall. The road stayed the same, quietly doing what roads are supposed to do, connecting places without causing trouble. Funny how that only works when people respect boundaries. The HOA did, mostly. The first real test came 6 months after the agreement. A new contractor tried to roll through at 5:30 a.m., diesel engine roaring like it was auditioning for a monster truck rally. The gate didn't open. 10 minutes later, I got a call. Polite, apologetic, immediate correction. The system worked. And more importantly, so did the people. I started seeing neighbors differently, too. Once the tension faded, real conversations happened. Mike stopped by occasionally. So did a retired couple who brought homemade jam as a thank you for not being like the last board. One afternoon, a teenager knocked on my gate asking if he could photograph the sunset from the hill for a school project. He waited for permission. That mattered. I said yes. Respect, it turns out, is contagious. The HOA never went back to being what it was. The new board operated like people who'd seen the edge of a cliff and decided they preferred distance. Meetings were shorter. Voices stayed calmer. Rules got simpler. And the phrase, "Do we actually have a right to do that?" became common. That alone was worth the trouble. Karen's house sold eventually. New owners. Quiet couple. They introduced themselves within the first week. We heard stories. The wife said carefully. So did I. I replied. They laughed, nervous but genuine. We got along just fine. The funniest thing, the road became boring. No drama. No shouting. No lawsuits. Just asphalt and dust. That's how you know something's finally working. One evening, I drove into town for supplies and ran into the same county inspector who'd first come out during Karen's complaint spree. He recognized me immediately. "You're the road guy," he said, smiling. "I prefer ranch guy," I replied. He chuckled. Word got around. You change how we handle access disputes now. We don't take everyone's always use it at face value anymore. I raised an eyebrow. Glad to be of service. Painful way to learn, he said, but effective. That was the thing about the whole ordeal. It never needed to be a fight. It became one because entitlement met reality and refused to blink. I didn't win because I was louder, or meaner, or richer. I won because I was right, and patient enough to let the truth surface. On the anniversary of the agreement, I replaced the gate keypad with a newer model. Same rules, better tech. As I worked, I thought about Karen, not with anger, but curiosity. What would have happened if she'd just asked? If she'd listened? If she treated my land like it wasn't Hayes? She could have been remembered as a neighbor. Instead, she became a cautionary tale. That night, I sat on the porch again. Same chair, same view. A car passed on the road, slow and respectful. Another followed, then quiet. The land exhaled. So did I. People still message me sometimes, online, through friends of friends, asking for advice. How do you deal with an HOA? What if they overreach? What if they lie? My answer is always the same. Get everything in writing. Know your boundaries. And never assume someone else's convenience outweighs your rights. The road stayed open. The ranch stayed mine. And somewhere out there, an HOA learned that power doesn't come from rules alone. It comes from respecting the lines that matter. Property lines, legal lines, and the invisible line between cooperation and control. Cross that one, and eventually, someone's going to put up a gate.